Welcome to Bible for Modern Minds podcast.
Profound personal story to unpack. It's a testimony that swings between two absolute extremes.
Right. You have this intense, performance-based, religious upbringing on one side.
And then on the other, just complete and utter self-destruction.
And our mission for you in this deep dive is to really follow that path.
Yeah.
To see how a life built on restriction can lead to such a massive rebellion.
And then eventually to this incredible realization that his worth wasn't something he had to earn. It was just there all along.
It's a fascinating story. The contrast is really what defines it. He was raised in a system of profound shelter, almost like a bubble.
Yeah, completely enclosed within the church.
And that kind of upbringing, it just set the stage for a spectacular crash. When rules are the main thing, the pushback is almost always just as extreme.
That tension is so key to the whole story. The sources describe his childhood as, beautiful in a way, very secure.
It's so restrictive.
He was born in Honduras. His family moved to Maryland when he was about 3, and his life was the church. His dad was an elder, a worship leader, a Bible teacher.
Immersed. That's the only word for it. It was a bubble. He was only allowed to listen to certain Christian music, watch approved movies.
It's the social rules.
That's the big one. No sleepovers, not even visiting a friend's house unless they were also Christians. It created this totally sanitized world where he had zero tools to deal with anything outside of it.
And that kind of shell, it always cracks, doesn't it? So what was the thing that finally broke it open?
You'd think it would be some big spiritual crisis, but it wasn't. It was economic.
Right.
Yeah. Around 7th grade, the family had to move from Gaithersburg to Germantown. And he didn't know why at the time, but he found out later it was because of the 2008-2009 recession. His parents lost their home.
Wow. So this huge life change was forced on him, and he didn't even have the context for it.
None at all. And that move meant a new middle school, and suddenly he's dropped into a completely new social world.
And that's where the exposure begins. He goes from being this, reserved kid to
falling in with the kids he called the outliers.
And the first real shock to his system was it was pretty intense.
Oh, it was brutal. In 7th grade, in a class, a friend just pulls out a phone and shows him pornography.
And he'd never seen anything like it.
No context whatsoever. And then it gets worse, discussions about masturbation, pressure to look at more. He said later it was a dark and twisted thing to do to a kid.
Like a violation. It's the end of that ignorance he'd been living in.
Exactly. And you have to see, that kind of shock, especially for a kid who's been taught to perform and be perfect, it sets up this thread we're going to follow, this deep, deep need for validation.
Which just explodes in high school, right?
It really does. Because now he's actively looking for that world he was kept from. He finds secular music, Wiz Khalifa, Chief Keef, that kind of stuff.
So he's living this dual life.
A complete dual life. The contrast was just stark. At church, he's seeing, prophesying, speaking in tongues, this really emotional worship.
And at school.
At school, it's fights, skipping class, being shirtless in the halls, a totally different social currency.
And he wanted a piece of that. He wanted a taste of the world outside the church walls.
He became obsessed with it. By 15, he's chasing excitement, sex, drugs.
So what was that rebellion really doing for him? What was the function of it?
It's those two words again. Power and validation. He gets into his first relationship at 15, loses his virginity, and for the very first time, he feels accepted.
But outside of the religious rules.
Exactly. And that feeling, that twisted sense of validation becomes addictive almost instantly. And that's what starts the whole downward spiral.
It's interesting. The moment of real conscious rebellion wasn't a drug deal or a fight. It was just one word to his parents.
That's right. The first big earthquake. He's 15. His parents come in to get him for the Friday night church service, and he just looks at them and says, no.
I don't want to go.
Just like that. And in that moment, he realized he had the power to just dismiss their rules.
And the follow-through was immediate.
Oh, that very same night, he smoked weed for the first time.
Wow. So the escalation from there was just incredibly fast.
Aggressive is the only word for it. Sophomore year, he's smoking. Junior year, he's selling drugs.
And by senior year, it's really catching up with him.
Oh, yeah. He almost didn't graduate. He's having constant meetings with the principal, with counselors, and he's moving on to heavier stuff. LSD, cocaine, prescription pills, a lot of alcohol.
And as that behavior gets more extreme, the family relationship just deteriorates.
It becomes polar opposites. In his mind, Christianity is now just a prison, a set of rules designed to stop him from having any freedom or fun.
And he has to justify that, right? He can't just rebel. He has to have a reason.
Exactly. So it becomes an intellectual war. He argues aggressively with his dad, starts attacking the Bible itself, trying to prove it's not accurate or inherent. He had to tear down the whole foundation to justify the life he was building.
Which brings us to age 20, the absolute low point.
Rock bottom. He'd lost his retail job, showing up late, high, you know the story.
Financially a wreck, but the relational damage sounds like it was even worse.
Absolutely. He's in this really codependent, sexually driven relationship, and he's developed this pattern of just hopping from one to the next.
And that's not just recklessness, is it? There's something deeper there.
It's a defense mechanism, 100%. His core belief was, I have to leave them before they leave me. It's all driven by this massive underlying fear of rejection that we'll see goes all the way back.
He described his life then as just unstable in every way. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually.
Financially, just hopeless. He literally said he couldn't imagine making it to 25 or 30.
And he needed to be high just to function, to eat, to sleep.
Yeah, that's severe addiction. But you have to see, at that point, were the drugs the problem or were they his solution? It sounds like they were a survival mechanism to numb everything else.
That's a great point. The drugs were the medicine for the pain, not just the cause of it.
So this all comes to a head, a real crisis point. Eviction notices are piling up. He and his girlfriend go to her brother's house. They're planning to take LSD.
And then he finds out she's cheating on him that same night.
Right, so the very last thread of validation he was clinging to in that toxic relationship just snaps.
And then comes the shift. He takes the acid, and maybe 30 minutes later, instead of hallucination, he's hit with this great fear.
And it wasn't a bad trip. It was a moral conviction. His whole life flashes before his eyes, all of it. The drugs, the lying, the relationship hopping. And he realizes it's all his own fault, his responsibility.
And the spiritual conclusion was immediate.
Terrifyingly immediate. He thinks, if I were to die today, I'm going to go to hell. He knew it.
And in that moment of terror, his mind lands on one thing.
Jesus, just the name. He said the name itself just felt like it had power.
And that conviction, it changes how he sees everything around him. He looks at his girlfriend who's just laughing at him.
And he suddenly perceives her as, in his words, oppressed by demons, that she was there to destroy him.
And then it escalates even more.
Yeah, he starts hearing voices. Audibly, he said, coming from the living room. People weeping, crying out, being tortured. He actually believed he was in hell.
Wow.
But he gets up, opens the door, and just leaves. It's 4:30 in the morning. He's running out of the house, crying out to God.
And he starts physically rejecting his old life.
Ripping off his goth pendant skulls, grim reapers, idols of death he called them, and just throwing them away.
But the journey is never that simple, is it? Doubt sets in almost immediately.
Right away. He does this coffee test. He drives to Starbucks, gets an Americano, hoping he'll sober up and be able to just write the whole thing off as a crazy hallucination.
And that need to explain it away, to rationalize it.
It leads him right back. He goes back to the girlfriend, stays for another month, couch hopping, things getting even worse. He's trying to get back to the comfort of his old life, even though he knows it's poison.
So about a month later, they're at a friend's birthday party, and they decide to do it again. Take LSD.
And 30 minutes in?
The exact same fear hits him. The conviction. The certainty that he's bound for hell. And that proved it, right? This wasn't just a one-time bad trip.
This was different. This time, there was a clarity to it, a level of sobriety, he said. He knew absolutely that he had to leave.
And they tried to stop him.
Physically tried to stop him, saying he couldn't drive high, but he just walked out. He remembers seeing police cars pass him on the highway and just knowing that God was protecting him, making sure he got home.
And the second he's home, he reaches out.
At 5 a.m. on a Sunday, he FaceTimes his sister, Zuri, and just confesses everything. I think I just found Jesus, and I took a lot of drugs.
And her response is so critical. She gives him a prophecy.
Yeah, a message she felt from God for him, and it just hit him right in the heart. She said, "You've been looking everywhere for validation and acceptance, but I am your best friend, and I've always been here for you."
And that shifts the entire focus.
Yeah.
It's not about finding worth anymore. It's about accepting a worth that's already there.
Exactly. So after that, he wakes up his parents, and this time he confesses everything. The drugs, the selling, the whole lifestyle.
And his father, who had heard years of lies.
Was skeptical at first, but when the full confession came out, he knew it was real. This was different.
Which leads to this moment of physical deliverance.
His parents lay hands on him, they're praying, and he feels this violent expulsion in his stomach. He runs to the bathroom.
And he says a huge bawl and a roar came out of him, but there was nothing there.
Nothing physical in the toilet. And in that moment, he says the drug addiction was just gone, broken.
That's an incredible story of deliverance. But what's so important for people to hear is that it wasn't the end of the struggle.
Not even close. Freedom from the drugs, yes. But the healing was a process. He spent the next 3 or 4 months breaking off that relationship, realizing, darkness and light, they have nothing to do together. He couldn't save her. He had to save himself.
And even then, the underlying issues were still there. A year later, the old struggles. Lust, pornography, they creep back in.
And that brings this massive self-doubt. Am I supposed to be perfect now? Am I even really saved?
Which is what finally led him to get Christian counseling for about 8 months, to deal with what he was pretty sure was a sex addiction.
And in that process, you see this beautiful redemption with his father. All the arguing and fighting, it's replaced by them bonding over scripture. It became a relationship of mutual support.
But even with all that progress, the core battle was still going on. Which brings us to October 2021. He's at a youth retreat, and he's actually there as a leader.
A leader and a translator. But on the inside, shame is eating him alive. The guest pastor calls for a time of deliverance. A time of prayer for freedom.
And he can't move.
He's paralyzed. He's thinking, I can't go up there. I can't let people see that I, the leader, need deliverance.
But he gets called out.
The pastor points right at him. You in the black hoodie all the way in the back, 2 guys come over, lay hands on his shoulders, and he just loses all his strength, falls to the ground.
And in that moment, on the floor, God shows him something, a memory he had completely forgotten.
This is it. This is the absolute key to the entire story. God brings back this traumatic memory of being sexually assaulted by an older boy in his neighborhood. He was 10 years old.
And that memory unlocked everything. It was the moment he could finally tell the difference between the cause and the symptoms.
Right. Suddenly it all made sense. The deep self-esteem issues, the feeling of being unworthy, tainted.
And his need to prove his masculinity through being hypersexual.
And the flip side of that, his drive to prove his worth through religious performance, serving like crazy in the church. It was all coming from the same wound.
He was trying to earn back an acceptance he felt was stolen from him when he was 10.
And an incredible realization. To see that everything you thought you were fighting, the addictions, was just a distraction from the real wound.
But even then, he only told his counselor at first.
Yeah.
And that wasn't enough, was it?
No, because the healing needed to be relational. The wound happened in secret, but the healing had to happen in the light. He struggled for months after that revelation, knowing something was still missing.
The final step was telling his parents.
Ultimate vulnerability. He finds them having breakfast one Sunday morning, which was rare, and he tells them. He confesses the childhood trauma.
And what was their reaction?
They just wept. Heartbroken that they didn't know so many years what he had been carrying. And that confession, it brought complete family reconciliation. It allowed him to finally be fully known by the people whose acceptance he'd been chasing his whole life.
So the ultimate insight here, for all of us, is that the core issue was never the drugs or the sex.
Those were just the symptoms, the smoke. The real fire was this feeling of being fundamentally worthless.
And the final revelation that set him free was the truth that completely canceled out his entire life of performance.
You are worthy because I made you in my image. Worth wasn't based on his actions, good or bad. It was inherent, a gift.
So what this whole narrative really shows you, I think, is that deep healing, real deliverance, it takes time, it takes patience, vulnerability. It's years, not weeks.
Absolutely. And you see the enemy's #1 tool through this whole thing, shame. Shame kept him performing. Shame kept him silent about the trauma.
And shame almost kept him in that black hoodie at the back of the room.
Right. It tried to keep him from confessing and coming to what his faith calls the throne of grace, which is really just that place of unearned mercy.
His view of Jesus now, after all of this, is just beautiful. He says, my everything, my best friend, my counselor. He found what he was looking for all along.
And if you connect it to the bigger picture, to the scripture he shared from Ephesians, it just drives it home. Redemption comes through grace. It is not found in your own work, not in how long you've been sober or whether you're perfect today or how big your mistakes were.
It's a gift given to the unworthy.
Exactly.
So the final thought for you to take away from this is pretty powerful. The key to his liberty wasn't found by fixing the symptoms, the addictions he could see. It was found by disclosing the deepest, most hidden wound to his family and finally accepting his own worth. And that makes you ask, right, what hidden root in your own life might be fueling symptoms, anxiety, performance, compulsive habits that you think you've already dealt with? What's the real engine driving the machine? That's your deep dive homework. We'll see you next time.